Andy, I mean, a good place to start then would be just for you to provide some context to, I guess, the state of the marketing landscape when you joined Diageo in 1999.
Yeah, so look, I started at Diageo in January 1999, and it was an interesting time for Diageo in that the business primarily had only been formed for 1 year. And the business was really a merger of two very big businesses that approached marketing in a very different way. And so you had a whole new business of people and a function of marketeers who actually talked about, thought about, described marketing with different language, with different tools, with different methodologies. And the wisdom of the executive at the time was that we had to get one language. We had to develop a way that Diageo approached marketing, attracted consumers, and grew its brands. And so there was an enormous transition over the next 18 months from really a United Nations of marketing people into a one way, which was called the Diageo way of brand building. And that became the way of talking about brands, of talking about, even more importantly, consumers, of understanding globally where brands were, how they were positioned, and therefore how we should move brands into a more global positioning whilst driving performance. So it was an amazing learning period. I argue that I actually got my MBA in marketing through the Diageo way of brand building. It was a real combination of learning and then practicing skills on the job, which I believe is crucial for anyone coming into the marketing world today.
Yeah. And what were the key principles in that Diageo way of marketing?
Yeah, so these key principles actually form my key principles of marketing, which I'm sure makes sense. It was my formative years. First of all, understand your consumer. Who is your consumer? And I'm not talking about all females 25 to 85. Like that's being everything to no one. I'm talking about really get clear on who is the most commercially high potential target that you could choose, that your brand can actually authentically weave its way into their lives and play a role. So the first thing was understand your target consumer. The second thing was understanding what your brand currently stands for in their hearts and mind. In their hearts and mind. How emotionally do they feel about your brand? And then functionally, how do they use your brand? And what could your brand do to actually help them, inspire them, encourage them to live the life they want to live whilst using it? And when you connect those two things together, what you have is a brand that's starting to be clearly positioned in a consumer's mind. And the Diageo way of brand building had a very clear set of tools and criteria as to what great looked like, and it pushed us all to get great happening. The next thing then, that's thinking and strategy. The next thing then was, how do you execute your brand positioning so that it's consistently on brand? It's consistently building equity of the core DNAs, the core values that your brand stands for in a positive way, and doesn't drift off positioning and start to deteriorate and eat into those core equities that your brand stands for. And the system that was built and the behaviors, the language, and the tools actually ensured globally that you could be appropriate to your consumers in market, but actually be on brand, be consistent globally. Very, very powerful.